Welcome back to the Sports Booth YouTube channel. It's probably just going on YouTube. We are doing an NRL preview. Obviously, NRL season kicking off this weekend.
Let's go.
I'm joined by Hughesy.
Very excited.
Yes, Hughesy,
hello.
say hello. I'm rocking my Dragons gear. Titans gear. Hughesy's not in his Dragons
soon
gear.
to be replaced. Look, okay, thing to say on that matter, I thought I was going to be getting a Dragons jacket for Christmas. I put it on my list to Santa. It materialized, so look, I'm just gonna have to get it for myself.
Gonna have to bite yourself.
I'm just gonna get Dragons jacket and getting one of those tattoos that's like Dragons 2020 premieres and things like that. I've got that. Got the preliminary like the stenciling booked in for that. So
nice.
Yeah, getting geared up for the season.
Nice. So yeah, what we're gonna do today is just run through each team, give a bit of a preview, see kind of gains and losses, what we think of each team. Then we'll do a top 8, bottom 8 type thing. I've got mine in order. Hughesy's just got a top 8, bottom 8 rough kind of idea. And then we might do a bit of a Daly M, who we think is going to stand out this year, and then touch base on predictions for the first week, and then we may chuck a grand final winner in there if you're lucky and you wait to the end. So we'll start off.
See how inspired we get.
Yeah, start off with the Brisbane Broncos. So big gains for them. Obviously, the biggest one being Adam Reynolds, South Sydney's number 7, has moved up north. He is joined by Kurt Capewell from Penrith, Brenko Lee, Melbourne, Corey Jensen from North Queensland, Jordan Pereira. Is it Pereira? Dragons boy. Billy Walters, coach's son, and Ryan James from Canberra. So that's their big gains. It's quite a good bunch, I must say. Probably best recruiting group they've had in a while. What do you make of that group, especially Hughesy?
So, looking at also some of the players that they've got in their group, I think those additions come in well. Reynolds at the 7 position. They've been trying to sort that position for God knows how long. The 6th position is still a huge question mark. Who's going to be filling in the number 6 jersey for this week? I think they've got Albert Kelly. No, they've got Billy Walters in there, and they've got Albert Kelly at 7 because Reynolds isn't even playing this week because he's come back from injury and stuff. So, look, I think they've had a pretty good go at recruiting. I think, however, they lost a big piece in Xavier Coates. I don't know if you're going to do the losses here in a second. I might be jumping ahead.
No,
Look,
right.
I think they've added some strengths, but I still think there's a lot of holes.
Yeah, I mean, losses, just quickly, Xavier Coates is obviously the biggest one. Anthony Milford was a loss, but had his ups and downs, had his moments. I think another big couple, Alex Glenn and Ben Teo retired, just that experience there. And Ethan Ballymore off to the Manly Seagulls, and now he's starting for Manly in the second row, which is interesting. They had a couple of hookers. Brodie Croft's gone to the UK. Danny Levi's gone to the UK. But I think the big one's Xavier Coates. And I think, as we'll touch base later with our predictions, I think this is definitely a better building year. Like, I think they've filled more holes. Number 7's the big one. I think, as much as Xavier Coates is a loss, having a number 7, which they haven't had for a very long time, since Ben Hunt jumped over to the Dragons, has been their biggest issue. So I think we're going to see an improved Broncos team this year. You hope so, with these pickups. Yeah. But it's yet to be, I guess,
they can't fall much further, I guess.
No.
My biggest thing is that their forwards, and even last year, they had a lot of talent in the forwards. Like Jordan Rickey's an amazing player. Of course, Payne Haas, one of the best props in the game. Huge mountain of a man. But at times, they just seem to mentally not be there. Or they just seemed to give up, or they would make silly errors, or they just wouldn't be playing as tough and as hard as they could. I think the addition of Kurt Capewell is really important, and I think they need to establish who their 9 is and stick with it. And another Dragons coup from the Broncos last year, they took Andrew McCulloch and Jack Bird out of that forward pack / backs, and McCulloch was a long time starter at hooker. Yeah, he had injury concerns coming into last season, but he swiftly proved that those were irrelevant. And I think missing that stability, it's a reason they call it the spine of the team. Missing that stability at 9 and 7 last year really hurt them. So I think Turpin has got to put his foot down early and say, I'm the man for number 9. And I think it's the same with whoever's going to be playing 6. Billy Walters got a huge opportunity this week to really firmly establish himself as the permanent 6. And look, they've got great pieces elsewhere across the field. Katoni Staggs, one of the hottest players in 2020 before his ACL rupture. Again, his season last year shortened by injury. Hopefully now that he's had a bit more time to recover, he's back with a bit more strength. He's still really young as well. It's just, you've got so many, just how do these jigsaw pieces fit together? Like, you've got the pieces there for a really, really solid team, but how are they going to interact together, and how are those pieces going to show up on the day? And that's going to be a question mark for at least the first 5 rounds, I think.
100%. I think you said it well, that the forwards seem to go missing with how much talent there is there at the start of last year, which they can't afford to. Pat Carrigan is back from injury as well, and had some I guess, size and some ability there in the forward pack. So again, another strong forward pack, you'd imagine. It's just what time Broncos team's going to turn up, which you probably wouldn't have asked, 10 plus years ago. You'd just expect a good Broncos team to always turn up, but at the moment it is what team's going to show up. So that's the Broncos. If we jump on now to the Canberra Raiders, quickly jumping through there. Gains, big one of Jamal Fogarty from the Titans. They also have Peter Holler from North Queensland, and Adam Elliott and Nick Cottridge from the Bulldogs. I know Adam Elliott, obviously, his issues. And then Nick Cottridge's been allowed an early release to head over back to the Raiders, where he was a form winger for the comp. Just quickly go through their losses. George Williams, obviously, they lost midway through last year, and the well, I guess the most bizarre way possible. Just a big mess in that one. Ryan James has headed up to Brisbane. Havili is off into South Sydney, the reserve hooker. And Bailey Simonson is off to Parramatta. Sia Soliola as well is retired. Other than that, not a lot. Dunaminus Louis gone, but not a lot of big names there. The big one is obviously Fogarty in, Williams out, which we saw last year, but now Fogarty out as well, so for 4 months. So yeah, I mean, Cottridge is obviously a good pickup, and Elliott's a good pickup for probably the price tags that they're paying to go with that squad. But Fogarty was I thought was the golden piece of this Raiders squad. What about yourself?
Yeah, look, I think their centres need a little bit. I'm not thrilled with them. Jared Croker's is now in reserve grade, but I think he's in reserve grade to work his way back from injury. Look, I don't know. There's just something about the Raiders I'm not sold on. I don't know what it is. I've just got this feeling in the back of my head. There's just something about them that I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but I just don't trust them. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't quantify it for you. I've just got a feeling about this Raiders team that I just think this isn't their year. You know how you get a feeling about the team like this team's year. They've got all the momentum. They've got all this, that, and the other. I don't know, just something about the Raiders just feels off to me.
Yeah, I think Chance Nicol-Klostad at the back coming back is going to be a huge in for them. I think that forward pack is what will get this team going. And I mean, Whiten is if he's playing at the level, I think their backline's got enough talent there now. I think the centres are a place of question. I think if Croker can work his back, Croker's best ability was that he could defend. He would score a try every so often, and he can kick goals like no man can. So that was like his free. As long as he can do that, they've got a pretty clean put him into centre, and they didn't have to worry about him for about 10 years. Now, injuries last year, he's had this stem cell or some sort of treatment, something like that as well. You don't quite know. I think if it does work, cool. If in doubt, I still think they've got enough talent there to push high. I just think that forward pack, the way Tapani was playing in the Māori All-Stars, or the Māori versus the Aboriginal All-Stars game, I just look and I go, when you get Rapana on a wing playing, he does as well, the way he was playing, I think there's enough there to me to go, if this team, if it clicks, it wasn't, what was it, 2 years ago they were in a grand final, maybe three years ago, and I go, if this team clicks, I still think they can go all the way. So we will touch base on where they fall into our top 8s, but you can quite clearly see there's a bit of a divide in opinion on this one. But I feel like the Raiders have enough. I thought with Fogarty they were definitely going to be enough. Now I'm sitting like I'm a little less sure, but we'll see. Next team up, Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. Teams with the most in. So they have brought in Josh Adokar and Max King from Melbourne, Matt Burden and Brett Naden from Penrith, Matt Duffy and Paul Vaughan from St George, Tavita Pangai Jr., Brisbane via Penrith, Braden Burns from South Sydney, and a couple of no names. So obviously a overhaul there. And if we look at their losses, you can see why. That Nick Meaney to Melbourne, Hopewadi, Will in this stage, St Helens, Renoff Atoni off to Sydney, Adam Elliott, Nick Kotrick, who we spoke of, Christian Crichton, Chris Smith, Dylan Nupper to Catalans, John Asiata, who was signed but then released due to the COVID, and then a couple others, a few releases down there, but no massive names.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, the players they brought in are obviously better than the ones they're losing. Let's not start off with getting that wrong. But there was so much wrong with this squad last year. Dead last finish, and quite clearly the worst team in the comp.
Let's take a look at some of their ads, right? And particularly what I like is they've got ads from winning teams. So Pangai Jr. was with Brisbane, but then went to Panthers and won a premiership there, right? Burton, premiership with Panthers. Adokar, premiership with Melbourne, multiple premierships, I think, even with Melbourne, Adokar. Brent Naden, premiership with Penrith. Matt Duffy has had individual success, if not team-based success, but the games that the Dragons won when he was playing, he was a big part of their reasons for winning, and only sometimes was he a factor in their losses, like a couple of misfielded kicks. So that's the biggest concern I have with Duffy. Look, I think, and Paul Vaughan, representative level player as well, despite his non-football brain being very questionable. Yeah, barbecue. Look, I think the Bulldogs have done a tremendous job of bringing in pieces that I think... what I like is they brought in pieces that are proven to work, that they're proven products, right? They're not taking a gamble on them, and they're not sort of... There's no question... There's sort of... With like Nick Kotrick, I look at, and it's sort of like there's a question over, is he the reason the Raiders were doing so well, or did he do so well because of the Raiders? You look at the players that they've brought in, right? Duffy clearly was the architect of some success at the Dragons, right? Naden was a very solid piece of print, and when he was playing well and not snorting cocaine, he was a big part of the success. Adokar, part of not only the Storm's success, but also New South Wales Blues as well. Matt Burton, key piece for the Penrith Panthers in their premiership run. Paul Vaughan, tremendous success at St George and elsewhere, and also an origin level player. Tavita Pangai Jr., origin level player, huge individual success, and you've already seen the aggression that he's bringing. I really, really like the moves that the Dogs have done. However, I still think there is holes in this roster. I don't know if it's all going to come together this year. We've already seen that Pangai Jr.'s got aggression issues, and who knows how much time he's going to actually even spend on the field. Paul Vaughan, his shorts get ever tighter, and it's cutting off circulation to his brain. Who knows what stupid thing he's going to do off the field this year. I think the biggest thing with this squad, and it's a perennial issue with the Bulldogs, is discipline and execution. And we're already hearing whispers out of Belmore about some of the players being worried about Trent Barrett's approach to the season not being as detailed as some of the other coaches. You know, when you go coming from an Ivan Cleary or a Craig Bellamy to a Trent Barrett, look, those two other coaches, one's a legend, one's a growing legend, right? There's something they've got the extra X factor that makes them so successful. Yeah. Trent Barrett didn't have great success at Manly, still unproven here at the Bulldogs. Who knows how he's going to work out. So I think the fact that there's already rumblings out of Belmore makes me a little bit nervous for this upcoming season. Next season, not announced, but sort of announced through the photograph. You've got Viliami Kikau coming in as well. I think they're adding a few more pieces. I don't think this is the year for them where they put it all together and can make a big run, but I think they're definitely going to be better than last year. I think there's no question that they'll be better than last year. I think even if they don't win a huge number of games, I think they're going to be a hell of a lot more competitive, and that's going to help them attract even more players to their team. So I'm really excited to see how the Bulldogs work out. I really loved the aggression I was seeing out of them. I think that they need to channel that aggression the right way, and I think it's really going to come down to, can Trent Barrett keep a tight leash on these Bulldogs? Great analogy there, Alex. But yeah, just keep a tight leash on them, keep it pointed in the right direction, They've got speed, they've got attack now out of the backs, which I think they were lacking before. The biggest question mark for me is the 7 and the 9 position. Jake Averillo and Jeremy Marshall-King. I think both of the players have got potential. They've both got a lot of potential. However, can they put it together with the other pieces to make this a consistent, and that's the key word here, consistently threatening team?
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing there I don't disagree with. Like I think their aggression is the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs, isn't it? Like that is what they are. So I think bringing that back's fantastic. I think Burden's probably the pickup of the lot there, just with his ability. I think I sit there and I go, man, that was a huge pickup for them.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement. I'm unsure. Trent Barrett's always been like this kind of spoken about coach that if he's not a head coach, it's always like, how is he not a head coach? Because he's just brilliant. But then every time he seems to get a shot at head coach, it's always kind of like, well, how long until he's out the door so we can get someone else in? So I don't see him lasting past this year because I don't think they're going to go that well this year. Not because of the players they brought in. I think they're definitely going to be improved. I think they'll win some games. They're going to shock. I reckon they'll shock a team like a Manly or a Penrith, a Storm, where they have one of their games. Parramatta, someone like that, and just they have a game they get up for. But I see them not jumping into the top. When you have that much of a roster changeover, I don't think you can expect such quick results, and that's what I'm hoping. And if you're in the back end of the Bulldogs, you're looking at Trent Barrett and you're going, I don't expect great results, but I expect to see us competitive. I expect us to see us ready. I don't expect us to see us getting beaten by like 30, 40 points a game coming up the bat. If that starts happening, he'll be out, exactly, and I think that'll be the big one for them. So I agree with most of the things you said there and about the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs. But as we say that, let's move on to the Cronulla Sharks. Some massive pickups of them. Obviously, Cam McInnes missed all of last season for you guys last year, but signed with the Sharks. Dale Finucane, Nico Hines, the three big ones. They also got Matt Ikavalu from Sydney, Lachlan Miller from Rugby Union, and no-name player from Wynnum, Queensland, second comp. So I think big three with those first three that I named, obviously the McInnes, Finucane and Hines. Probably the most interesting, you could say, is Hines because that's reshaping everything they had. Obviously, they lost Sean Johnson to the Warriors. Their losses. They lost both their halves with Sean Johnson and Chad Townsend. Aaron Woods went to St George. Billy Magoulis went over to Warrington. Will Chambers disappeared to Rugby. Josh Dugan was retired/released, and Nene McDonald also released. So they lost both of their starting halves. That was meant to be their half pairing. They've now brought in Hines and kind of gone, let's make a half pairing with either Moylan or Tyndall. But again, I think, they're big pickups. Finucane, your man McInnes, and Hines. What are your thoughts on the Sharks this year?
Look, I think it's going to be... Look, I think Craig Fitzgibbon, he's been always been brought out. I think that's one that you have to talk about as Fitzgibbon, the coach change for this team. There's been a lot of talk about him, and he's coached at an origin level, not as a head coach but as assistant coach. He's coached at high levels as an assistant. Putting it together as a head coach now, I think it's going to be a challenge for him. I think that the Sharks have got a tremendous backline, particularly with Hines being in there in the middle forwards and his flexibility to move around. I think the Karen McInnes pickup is going to be great when he can get onto the field. Obviously coming back from a horrific injury, suffered pre-season last year, which is such a shame for him. He was one of my favourite players at the Dragons. Such a hard worker, relentless, which is something that the Sharks have been missing since Paul Gallen has left there. So I think that's going to be a really big pickup for them. Finucane is a great player as well. I think, though, that this being their first year under Fitzgibbon, I think they're going to be, and because of the strength of the competition, I see them around middle of the pack. Now they might, but they're one of those teams. I think middle of the pack is like their floor.
Yeah.
I think they have the potential to go even higher than that, and I think a lot of it's going to see if Matt Moyler can get back to some of his best form. I think that's where this side's really going to swing on. I like all of the other pieces in their backline. I think it's a deadly backline. I think Ikavalu is a bit underrated as well.
100%.
Because even though he had a lot of success at Sydney, a lot of the times it was in replacement of someone else. He never really had a chance to start. Bigger question for me though is in this forward pack, and sort of similar situation to the Bulldogs, which is they're aggressive, maybe sometimes too aggressive, but also with the Broncos, sometimes they seem to drop away, or at least they did last season anyway. So, and Andrew Fafita's back in the squad, I think is good for them. I think, nasty forward back, hard and lots of strike power in the back line. I think it's got the potential, but it's getting it all to mesh together.
100%.
That's going to be, and along with a new coach, I think is going to be the biggest questions for me.
I think they'll have
I think it's too much change, like you said, too much change in one season to be 100% on them.
Yeah, I think like you said, it's kind of like a juggling act they're at the moment. Like, what pieces? How does this piece all work? And trying to put the puzzle together. So I think Dale Furnican is going to set the standard there, which is really good. What the Sharks kind of needed last year. I saw watching their trial, Brenton Nakora running some unders lines. He looks like he's back to their best. On an edge, which they need. Obviously, Will Kennedy's going to be good. He's very, I think, underrated as a fullback from the back. So a lot of I think really good. Again, this team, I totally agree. I've got them as like a mid-floor, 100%. But you could easily, they get on a run. If Craig Fitzgibbon is as good as everyone's kind of saying he is, I think there's a lot of teams worried about how good this team could be under him. And if they get everything moving right, it's dangerous. It really is. This team, I think, could take surprise a lot of people, definitely.
100%.
Alrighty, on to the Gold Coast Titans, the eventual grand finalists and premiership winners. The gains for us. The gains. Isaac Lui from Sydney, Paul Turner from the Warriors, Aaron Booth from Melbourne, and Will Smith from Parramatta. So no big gains there. It's more keeping what we had, which is sometimes good.
Yeah. Last season was your sort of big acquisitions, I think.
Definitely. Losses, Jai Whitebread and Sam Stone, a bit of fringe players off to Lay in the UK, Jonas Pearson down to the Queensland Cup, Tyrone Peachey to the West Tigers, Jamal Fogarty, the big one, to Canberra, Ash Taylor off to the Warriors, Mitch Rain to Parramatta, and Anthony the Don retired. So two halves that we obviously lost, but that was purely because Sexton is coming through and played a few games towards the end here. Let's hear your opinion first before I start harping on about my Titans.
Well, look, I quite like the Titans, actually. I think they were really unfortunate to not go further in the finals last year. Really, really unfortunate. I think they've got a really great forward pack. I think they've got a tremendous forward pack with Fafita and Big Tino leading the way in there. And Fodawaker as well, I really like. I really like Fodawaker. AJ Brimson at 6, I think he's a really good fit at 6, actually. I think he's the perfect kind of 6 where he's not just... Because he's coming from that fullback, he has that confidence to be able to run the ball himself, to be that bit more of a X-factor half rather than a merely ball distributor. I think Jaden Campbell... I believe he's put on a bit more bulk than last season, because last season I think he was tossed around a little bit too much and relied a little bit too much on speed. Which at the NRL level you can do that, but you have to be. It doesn't count for as much as in the lower grades. Yeah, I think the Titans have got a bright future. I think that the foundation last year was laid. The fact that you got into the top 8. So I think they build from that. I think, again, they sort of come in at the lower end of the 8, but I think that they have a more consistent season overall.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I'm at the same ambition at the moment. I feel like we're building. I would have loved to keep Jamal Fogarty and had Jamal Fogarty and Sexton, but I understand all the moving pieces. My issue is what happens if we do have an injury. It's a long season. COVID hit someone. Yeah. I am a bit nervous there. But I think Sexton's going to go fantastic. I am interested to see how Brimson's going to go in D, because like you're saying, he's a very X factor. I think could be a Jack Whiten type ball player, but obviously Jack Whiten's built like he could be another forward. You know what I mean? Like Brimson's not.
Yeah.
Brimson's more speed, kind of agile. So him in the front line will be
Reminds me
interesting.
more of Munster.
A bit more of
Reminds me
Munster,
of
but even Munster's got size on. I think Brimson. I think Brimson's smaller than
Yeah.
that. So that'll be interesting how they do around him. How I guess David Fafita shows up as well. How we use him. I love. We've obviously taken the captaincy off Kevin Proctor and put it to Tino, only because it means we don't have to start Kevin Proctor now, which is fantastic. I think Kevin Proctor adds a lot with experience. You know, he was in that Melbourne setup, and I still rate him as a player. I just think it was time for Beau Fermor to start and David Fafita to start on the other one. I think they've done it all right. The only extra player I would have on the bench from the team they named was Jared Wallace. I think he adds something, and I'm like interested that they've gone Sam Lasoni. Now Lasoni has looked good in this preseason, so I'm no coach. I'm interested to see. I've got a nervous happiness around me. Like I'm waiting to enjoy watching my Titans. I think the way I saw Herbert play, I think there's him and Kelly are X factors in the centres without being, the target people. You can't just forget about them and triple team David Fafita because they can break a game open by themselves as well. So yeah. I'm very interested to see how we go. But again, I think if we can get ourselves into that question and asking for that top four, then I'll be really happy moving forward, because I think we are probably a couple of years away from what we would expect the title, but you never know. On to the Manly Sea Eagles. So only one game, and it was Ethan Bullimore from Brisbane. So they only lost Curtis Sirenen, who again I think has been unlucky with his career. He was one of my favourite players. I did like watching him play. He's headed over to the UK. Cade Cust also over to the UK. Biggest loss for them, Moses Suli off to St George with Jack Gawiski, and Tavita Funa to Rugby Union. And that's so Moses Suli's kind of the big loss, I think, from centre. Massive game for you guys. To be fair to them, it would have been impressive if they could keep him and not be able to play him in first grade. Like, he's a first grade player, Moses Suli. So I guess not a lot to talk about, not a lot of change, which I think is really good for this Manly team. All they need is time on the ball. All they need is for just that another year of that harmony to come together. I think obviously the injury to Josh Schuster is disappointing, but I think the fact that Bullimore's been able to step in there and has now been named to start, I'm really interested to see how he goes, because he was a workhorse in the middle. I'd love to see him on an edge, a big lad. So what's your thoughts on this Manly team? Because team that other than Penrith and Storm, you kind of, and Souths obviously last year were definitely the fourth best team in the comp.
Manly was probably as soon as they got Tom Trbojevic back, was the hottest team in the league. No one wanted to play them, and it was a hard fought finals match that they did have. So anytime you have Tom Trbojevic on the field and able to stay on the field, they're deadly. I think Jason Saab is only improving, and I think he was a good player at the Dragons. It just wasn't maybe quite the right fit for him, and he also didn't live in the area. A whole bunch of things. So I'm happy to see him thriving, because I always wanted to see him get on the field more. It's just where there wasn't enough spaces for him. Biggest question mark for me about this team, might be a bit of a surprise, but it's actually the halves. So they're another year older, especially Foran.
Foran's the question, definitely.
Yeah, it's getting on there in years. Look, you're right, him more so than Daly Cherry Evans, who last year I think he went a little bit under the radar because he was in the shadow of Tom Trbojevic. But in some of those early losses that they had without Tommy T, he was like, it was almost like he was the only player on the team showing up. Him and Jake Trbojevic were the only players on the team showing up, especially in defence. So the only question I have is just, can he keep that up and not get injured? I like this team. I think that even though they did lose Sully, I think, again, you're right, they weren't going to be able to keep on the field because of how well Brad Parker and Morgan Harper are playing. I think their back line is pretty deadly. I think their forwards are tough. And expecting a similar sort of... I essentially see almost a repeat of last year. Maybe a little better. It depends, but yeah, I think Manly's in for a good year. Manly is very rarely has bad years.
Yeah.
And so I think they're in for a good year.
And I think everyone was celebrating last year when they started off having a bad year and then kind of got laughed in their own faces when Tom Trbojevic came back. Yeah, they've got the young guy on the bench as well, the young centre who's a flyer as well. So, is it Kalau? Is it that one? I missed his name, but yeah,
I'm not sure. Whoever it is, it's fast.
Yeah.
Him and Saab.
When they get going, and I think that'll be interesting to me. Is okay. So everyone now knows how great Tom Trbojevic was. It wasn't like he was bad before that, but everyone really stood up and took notice. So if you're a team now and you're playing them, the Storm, the Panthers, you're going to go, how do we shut him down? So it's who around him is going to step up and win them a game. And like you said, I think that falls onto Mr. Cherry Evans, and can he do that, and can he lead this team to a victory? Because I think as great as Tom Trbojevic will be again this year, I think he'll be good again. I don't think he'll live up to the expectations that he set last year, because that was an unreal level. But I think, can Cherry Evans lead this team to a title? And that's the question. And I think they've got the team around it to do it. I think that whole team started off very young, very slow, and then they kind of finished it off really well the year. So, I mean, it'll be interesting. This team's one of those teams that I feel like, again, Tom Trbojevic, Hammy, and where do they finish? Maybe not even in the top 8. But I think we can probably count them as a top 4 team, just about. On to the next one, Melbourne Storm. So we have Mr. Xavier Coates, probably the biggest game, Nick Meaney from Canterbury, Josh King from Newcastle, Jaden Nikodima from Redcliffe, and William Warbrick from the New Zealand Rugby Sevens team. Losses, Josh Adokar and Max King to Canterbury, Darren Finnegan and Nico Hines to Cronulla, Aaron Penne to the Warriors, Brinko Lee to the Broncos, Aaron Booth to Gold Coast, Riley Jacks to Queensland, and a few released, no big names. So yeah, obviously the big one is the switch of Adokar to Xavier Coates. I'm just about going to say they probably will. I think they've probably done what they had with Adokar as much as they could, if you know what I mean. It was just going to be like, get the ball to him in space, hope that he does well. I'm very interested to see how Bellamy gets Coates and what he does with him. Same with Meaney. Meaney was a quality player at the Bulldogs, just didn't have the team around him. Gets a shot at 6 this week with Munster out, but I think we'll see him definitely playing that Hines-like role and improving this year. And then the others not so much. It's just the same team, same Melbourne Storm situation. Win games, don't lose many.
Yep. Look, I think they've got tremendous backs again. I mean, it's the Melbourne Storm. You got Pappenhausen back there. Justin Olam is he's got to be up there with one of the last players I'd want to get tackled, or have to tackle. Like he's up there, man. Jerome Hughes, I think, because he's always. I mean, I think Hughes, Munster, and Pappenhausen are the next big 3 for Melbourne. I mean, they're already playing like it, but I think they can consistently be that good. I don't know if they'll ever get to the same level that the previous big 3 of Slater, Cronk, and Smith got, because I mean, they're tremendous players, but they will always keep the Storm competitive. The forwards are always going to be really well drilled. I think that Brandon Smith is going to be playing really well at 9, and then I think eventually he'll transition to 13 whenever Harry Grant gets back. So I think he's now a bit more settled, even though he's departing next year. I think for this year he sort of knows his place, whereas last year he was a bit more uncertain. Look, they've got Big Nelson on the bench as well. So imagine you've been playing for like 30 minutes, and then you've been tackling all these big guys, both Bromwich brothers, and then suddenly Nelson walks onto the field and you've got to try and tackle him as well. Like, the Storm are always scary. I think as long as they've got Craig Bellamy coaching them, they're always going to be a scary team and always a threat to take another premiership. There's not that much to say about it, really.
It's the Storm as the Storm.
Just Melbourne Storm. They're good, yeah. Since they've been in the league, they've been good.
Yeah, so that I'm not even going to add to that. So we'll swiftly move on to the Newcastle Knights, who for the past few years have been terrible, but last year they managed to finish, I think it was 7th, and squeeze into the playoffs or the final series. This year gains Dane Gagai and Adam Clune from St George and South Sydney sorry, respectively. So Dan Gagai from South Sydney, Adam Clune from St George. Losses. Blake Green retired. Connor Watson, a big one to Sydney. And then obviously the other big one was Mitchell Pearce off to Catalans. Gimat Sabisky went to Rugby Union. Stafford Toa to West Tigers. And Josh King to Melbourne. So, I mean, Dan Gagai has been here, done it before at Newcastle. Can he improve on what he did last time? Because it wasn't pretty. I'm a bit nervous with this pickup, purely because I think he is made better by players around him, and that's not to say he isn't a good player, but he is made so much better with players around him. If they can take space, he can beat a man one-on-one. I think in this position, he's going to have to make a lot of space. So a little bit of worry there.
My uncle is a lifelong South fan, and he hates Dan Gagai. Because Gagai, and it's the classic Dan Gagai reason for everyone hates Dan Gagai is that he has a switch which he flips when he plays in Origin, and he turns off when he plays at club level. Yeah, I'm definitely not sold on this Knights team, especially the halves pairing. I think it's a very average halves pairing, and I like Adam Clune. I just don't. I think him and Clifford are both solid, but you look at the talent around the rest of the league. I think you'd have to say it's probably the worst halves pairing in the league.
And again, you could probably agree with that, and I wouldn't say you'd be too far wrong. I actually think Jake Clifford's going to have a hell of a year this year. I think he's going to take this team, I wouldn't say to another level, maybe like 14th or 13th or something like that. Like, don't get me crazy, but I think he's actually going to show off and go. He's going to, you know how Daly was playing for Manly when they were losing all that games. I think that's going to be the Jake Clifford who's going to play as hard as he can, get some things going. He's got, Joe John sitting behind him telling him what to do. I think he's going to be a lot better than people expect, and that's why I sit there and I go, man, I just don't see it with this team. You've got Kalen, you've got, that's a decent forward pack, Tyson Frizzell, you've got Lachlan Fitzgibbon, you've got the Safiti brothers, but there's something there that I'm just like, again, it's like your feeling for the Raiders. I go, this isn't a good team. They lost Pearce, they lost Watson. I don't know. Something about this Knights style.
Yeah, exactly right. I couldn't have put it better myself.
All right, we'll move on from the Knights because they'll leave everyone confused. To the Cowboys, who may also leave us just as equally confused. So games for them: Peter Hiku and Jermaine Tanua-Brown from the Warriors, Chad Townsend Sharks via the Warriors, and Brendan Elliott back from the UK for a stint here. Losses: Michael Morgan, that's a heartbreaker, retired. Justin O'Neill, Jarvid Bowen and Lachlan Burr all retired. Francis Molo to St George, Corey Jensen to Brisbane, Peter Holler to Canberra, Shane Wright to the UK, and a no-named released. Okay, so here I'm just going to give you my little 2 cents to the Cowboys. I think they're better than teams are going to say. I think they get better than they were last year. I think Todd Payton's actually a decent coach with what he was doing with the Warriors. I see them slowly improving from what they had last year and going forward. I think Taumalola has a massive bounce back year. But I think, from last year, where did they finish? 15th in the end? 15th?
Yeah, it finished pretty poorly last year. I'm not sure.
I think they challenge a bit more and around that 12th, 11th, 10th point. I don't think they make the top 8.
15th last year.
I think they are better than a lot of people are giving them credit for, and it's because of their halves, but I understand it. But I think they will be better than they were last year under Todd Payton. Take the floor. Yeah,
I think they will be better. I still don't think they will be that good. I think after the Knights, it's either the Cowboys or the Tigers that have got the worst halves pairing after that, I think Tom Dearden's decent. I think Chad Townsend's decent. Again, I think that other teams around the league have got a better halves pairing than that. And listen, I only elevate the Broncos above them because of Reynolds. I think for week 1, the worst halves pairing is going to be the Broncos. But I think overall, when all the players are healthy, Reynolds significantly lifts that. I don't know. I don't know. The Cowboys for me are the team that could either be 15th or 5th. I think they've got. There's such a question mark. Like, they've got so many potential good pieces there. But again, they had some good pieces last year as well, and it just didn't materialize. And it was just like you just sort of looked at some of their games they played, and you just like, what is going on? So yeah, I don't know. It's just
again another confusing one.
Mark.
Yeah. Put a question mark next to the Cowboys. I think every game you could do that against, even the big teams. I go, man. I think the big teams, they could trouble some big teams. You just even their edges, like their edges have played a total of like minimal games. So you go, they could be fantastic, or are they gonna they'll bottle it and everything? But
yeah,
put the question mark next to the Cowboys. We'll see how they go. On to the Parramatta Eels. Gains, Bailey Simonson from Canberra, Mitch Rain from the Gold Coast. Losses, Joey Lussick to St Helens, Will Smith to Gold Coast, Blake Ferguson to Rugby Union, Michael Oldfield,
Blake Ferguson to a Japanese jail cell.
Yes, probably coming back to some league team soon.
Yeah.
Michael Oldfield, Sam Hughes, Jordan Rankin all released, and Keegan Hipgrave retired. The Eels. Contenders probably again this year, I'd say, but again, is this squad going to win them a premiership title that they so dearly want? I'm unsure. What are your thoughts, mate?
Yeah. Look, I think similar performance to last year. Maybe a tad better, maybe. Yeah, I actually quite like the halves pairing of Mitch Moses and
very good halves pairing. Definitely.
I think for some people they're a bit. I hear a lot of sort of negative stuff about Mitch Moses. I don't know if I fully understand it. I think a lot of teams like to hate Parramatta. I like Clint Gutherson as well. I really like their forward pack, but there are some games, like there was a game against St George last year, I think round 4 or something like that the forward pack just got bullied. And I think that there is perhaps a little bit of a leadership problem in that forward pack, that there's just not like a real steadying presence.
Yeah.
I think maybe some of them are afraid to stick their hands up as a leading presence. So yeah, look, I think they'll do well for themselves this year. I think they'll be sort of the Parramatta Eels we've seen in the last 2 years, where they've been solid contenders, but when it comes finals time, that's the big question mark for them. So I think they'll make finals. I think it's how they do in the finals which will determine whether they see the season as a success or a failure.
100%. They're not going to miss the finals, I don't think, this time. I think it would take something pretty catastrophic for them to miss finals. But like you said, I think this team has been, a team up there for the past few years now and just never seemed to be able to get over the hump. Yeah. So how do they get over that hump? That's going to be the question, I think. So I think we see a definitely cautious approach during the season. I think they're going to be one of those teams that are going to try and peak for finals time because they just haven't in the previous years. So I think I see them doing something a bit different towards the end of this year, just to try something. They've got to get something working for them. But we'll move on to the reigning champs, the Penrith Panthers. Games for them: Sean O'Sullivan, Chris Smith, and Christian Crichton. Obviously, we've discussed many of their key losses, to be fair. Matt Burton, Brett Naden, Tavita Pango Jr. all off to Canterbury, Kurt Capewell to Brisbane, Paul Momorowski to Sydney, and Tyrone May, probably for better, off to Catalans. So yeah, I mean, this team, Nathan Cleary, as long as you've got Nathan Cleary in your team, I think you're a top 5, top 4 contender every year. I don't really see them missing anything. Obviously, Nathan Cleary out for the first 3 rounds. I think Sean O'Sullivan's a great replacement. The way he played for the Warriors last year, I thought was fantastic when he came into the squad. He'll be able to help definitely a lot with Luai, who's got now that experience, that big game experience for New South. I think this team, again, I see them waltzing through, getting into the top 4. I don't see them having too much trouble. I don't think they go as well as they did last year. I think their other teams are going to slowly start to work them out. I think Burton being a loss, they've lost a couple of key players who stood up when you weren't expecting them to stand up. Like Burton would always, whenever you just kind of needed a try, Burton seemed to do it for them. When they're not going to have that, they're going to have to get that to come from someone else. But I think that probably does come from someone else. They haven't lost a lot of depth, so they're able to kind of build from what is already a very good junior system.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, their backs, all of them can contend to be in the top 5 of their respective positions. A lot of them are playing representative level football. Their forwards are really hard running, and they're already getting plundered for other teams last year, but they're still able to field a lot of their starting forwards from last year, which I think is tremendous. I think the biggest questions for this team will happen with injuries, because last year they were able to absorb a lot of the injuries because of the tremendous depth that they had. Whether they can sustain that same level of injuries this year, I think is a bigger question mark and probably less likely. And so, yeah, I mean, I think this team still obviously makes finals. I think they still do well in the finals. Don't know if we see back-to-back championships. I think that would be a massive call, but you're right. You've got Nathan Cleary and Jerome Luai in your halves. You're going to be doing well. You've got Viliami Kikau running the ball in the front row. You're going to be doing well. When you've got Stephen Crichton, whatever position he's playing that week, he's going to be having an impact on the field. Brian To'o is going to be making over 150 metres every game. I think this is a really, really good team. Don't know if we see back-to-back championships. We very well could. That's the thing with this team. You very well could see back-to-back championships. I think they've got a very high floor and ceiling. It'll be interesting. It's a great matchup week 1, and I think first game of the season, Penrith versus Manly. I think we'll get a really good gauge on where both of those teams are at this season.
It is quite sad that Nathan Cleary is out. That would have been a fantastic first game for the NRL.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. We will move on to the St. George Illawarra Dragons, Hughesy's team. So yes, St. George Illawarra Dragons, Hughesy's team. Let's go through their games because there's a few. Jaden Sewer, Tautau Moga, both from South Sydney. Francis Molo from North Queensland. George Burgess coming back from Wigan. Moses Mbai from the West Tigers. Moses Suli and Jack Gowalski from Manly. And Aaron Woods from Cronulla. So a big list there, but not to be undone. Also a big list of losses, but not a lot of names I know about. So it's got Eddie Blacker to Penrith in 2021 and Tyrone Wishart to Melbourne in 2021. Cameron McInnes, obviously Matt Duffy, Paul Vaughan we all know about, Adam Clune and Jordan Pereira. Then Cade Ellis to Wigan, Braden Williami to Rugby Union, Hayden Lomax to Temora Group 9, Corey Norman retired, and Gerard Beale and Billy Britton both released. Does that sound right to you?
That does sound right. And some of those names being released is kind of like, been waiting for those names to go for a while. Like Braden Williami, Corey Norman, both definitely cost us games at times. Jordan Pereira as well cost us games. Look, for a Dragons fan, this year is really exciting. It's really, really exciting, particularly because it's not only just pieces that have been brought in from other teams, it's pieces that have come up through our junior system as well, which is one of the strongest junior systems along with Penrith's. So Tyrell Sloan at 1 I think is amazing. Cody Ramsey on the wing, I think it's his best fit. The fact that we're able to put Moses Suli into the centres and then have Jack Bird in the forwards, I think it's huge being able to get both those players on. Zach Lomax back healthy, Ravalawa back healthy, having one of our juniors, literally Junior Amone, in at 6 I think is good. He and Jaden Sullivan are both fighting for that spot, so we've got depth there in case one of them goes down. Ben Hunt at 7, the captain, experienced leader, playing some of his best footy of his career. If he goes down injured, we've got someone that can step in there as well. The forwards, we've got such depth in the forwards this year that we're able to put George Burgess into a lower grade team. We're able to hold Tarek Sims out a week and just let him get 100% back from injury. We've got former representative players in there with Aaron Woods. We've got current representative players in there with Jaden Sewer. Jack DeBellins had a full off-season with the team and is now going to be starting full-time. Blake Laurie is a tank of a prop, and a lot of the players that we had to start last year are able to either be on the bench or in reserve grade, which I think is a lot of those players, that's where they should be. And I think that will ease things up for them. I really actually like, and I think it's going to be an underrated pickup, is Moses Mbai as that utility player that can. And I actually see him fulfilling a sort of similar role to what Benji did last year for Souths, where he can when you need that extra little bit of attack, that extra ball player somewhere in the back line, you can bring him in with some of his experience as well. But he's also a fill-in for various positions in the backs and at hooker if someone goes down with injury. Francis Molo is a great player from the Cowboys that we've got on interchange. Yeah, I'm really excited, if you couldn't tell, about the Dragons' upcoming season. Last year we finished 11th. We were in the top 8 for most of the season last year, even with that roster until Barbecue Gate.
Yeah.
And then after that, let's not talk about it. But I think the Dragons come into the season very, very underrated. A lot of people were picking them for the wooden spoon, in fact, which I find really hard to believe. But I was really encouraged by what I saw from the trials, particularly the Charity Shield, which I think you said it last week, is about the only trial match that actually means anything, that actually you can put a bit of stock in and say, okay, we could take something away from this game.
And normally what you take away from it is that the Rabbitohs, especially the past few years, are good and the Dragons are shit. So
Exactly. So,
it's a big plus for you guys.
yeah, and I think we're really lucky to go into the first week against a Warriors team missing their best player and still, I would assume, mourning the loss of Roger Tuivasa-Sheck. So I think they've got some good first week momentum potentially, and the Warriors have been a bit of a bugbear for the Dragons last couple of seasons. The Warriors played really well against Dragons last couple of seasons, so I think if they can sort of clear that skeleton out of their closet and get rolling a bit in the early season, I think the Dragons can be very contentious this year, and I think they'll surprise a lot of teams about how well they can actually play.
Yeah, and now to kind of be the devil on your shoulder. A lot of turnover just worries me a little bit. So a lot of different players in different positions. Again, it's that chemistry question. Bit of the Sharks type feeling, something like that, where you go, or even the Bulldogs, you go, a lot of good pieces I think you've added. I think your roster's definitely better than last year. I think Ben Hunt's huge still. I think he's going to absolutely help.
Yeah.
I get nervous with all the young pieces around him. Not for him, but for those young pieces. Can they play up to his level type thing like that? Like he towards the end of last year, and I think even during last year when he was playing for Queensland, that was the Ben Hunt I remember. So hopefully he's back to his best, because that's where you will be at your best, is if he's playing at his best. So I mean, it's not all bad. I struggled still to put you guys in the top 8, but I can easily be proven wrong. And I think, like I said, like we've just said about that, the old preseason games and the trials, there's only one that really counts, and that one made me take a little bit more notice. I went, okay, I've never thought, I've been like, Tyrell Sloan, there's all this talk, is he that good? Maybe he is that good. Maybe he actually is that good, because there was a couple of plays there where I was like, okay. So I think it's a perfect matchup for both teams to get themselves going. I think it is for you guys. Even I'm less worried about the result in this first game for either of these teams and actually seeing the performance. So if both teams play really well, and say you get like a 24-22 where it's a tight affair, your defense has been good but your attack's also been great, you've seen some great tries, I think both of those teams, and we'll touch base with the Warriors later, will take a lot from it. And so that's where I'm really interested to see this first round, to see for your Dragons, because I've never seen a good Dragon side.
I still remember 2010. So there's two key things for me that this team, if these turn out positively for them, will mean they have really good success. The first, and it's the same one with every team, it's the forwards. How they hold, because they were definitely on some games last year, particularly when depth was challenged with Barbecue Gate, the forwards fell apart. This year, I think it's a lot stronger. I think there's a lot more good pieces. I think the pieces they've brought in are really, really solid additions, and the pieces they've kept are the best of the bunch. So I think their cohesion is the biggest thing. It's not necessarily a talent, it's their cohesion and effort. The second one, and this is probably the one that most people have their eyes on, is the number 6 position, is Talatau Amone or Jaden Sullivan, whoever is filling that jersey in whatever particular week. They've both got tremendous individual talent, and they've both had tremendous success at the lower levels. What's key, I think, for me, is that they have played together and with Tyrell Sloan for many years. So there's that chemistry amongst them. It's the chemistry with the rest of the back line, and the sort of sometimes the mental errors we see out of the young players. Junior Moan, I think, has got so much talent. We saw it in the Charity Shield games. There were so many times where he just made breaks that you're just like, how is he moving like this? How has no one caught him yet? But it's him facilitating the ball. It's not his individual talent that I'm worried about. It's how he plays as a half that has me like. That's where the success of this team is going to hinge on, is how he actually satisfies that ball distribution part of his role.
Yeah, I mean, he had flashes last year. I saw Benji when I saw him playing. I was like, oh my god, that's a young Benji type thing. Yeah. He could be a hell of a talent. But enough with the Dragons. Let's move on to South Sydney Rabbitohs, which is a really interesting team because obviously their biggest loss, as much as player-wise, is a great Wayne Bennett, has now headed up to Redcliffe. It's got gains here, Anthony Milford, but we all know that that's not happening. And so then they've got Isaiah Tass from Brisbane, Michael Cheekham and Sevilla Javi from the Raiders. Losses, Adam Reynolds, big one. Jaden Sewer, Tautau Moga, big ones. Dane Gagai, big one. Josh Cook and Braden Burns, not so big. Patrick Mago, not so big. And then a lot of no names. And then Benji Marshall, obviously also a big one, into retirement. So, I mean, I don't even know really where to start with the Rabbitohs. I think people are still giving them too much credit, and I'm going to say this is a team I think not many teams have been overrated this season, because I think there's a lot of teams that you have question marks. The Cowboys, the Dragons, there's a lot of question marks about teams like who's going to actually step up. I think South Sydney's probably the biggest team to take a step back, and I think it's not going to be a bad step back. Like, I think they still make the top 8. But I just go, you've lost your key man, your cog, the middle of the wheel in Adam Reynolds, who kind of moved all the pieces. I still think when Cody Walker's on form, he was the half of that team, but Adam Reynolds got them around the park, did everything. They've obviously still got the great Damien Cook, Cam Murray, and then their weapon at fullback in Latrell. So I still see this team being very dangerous. I don't see them being able to do as well as they did last year, and I just can't.
Yeah, I think they were very fortunate to get into the grand final, and I think they played really well in the grand final as well. I think you're right. Adam Reynolds is such a loss, and round 1, going in there without Latrell, going in there with no Adam Reynolds as well, going in there without the master Wayne Bennett, perhaps the best coach rugby league has ever seen. It is going to be, it's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough for South Sydney. I think they have enough pieces around there, as you said, to get them into the top 8, but I definitely don't see them going to the grand final again this year. And look, we may be proven wrong, but I think they showed a lot of grit in that Charity Shield match, but you could kind of tell that they weren't the better team.
Yeah.
Which against the Dragons is like, that's as good as I might think the Dragons are, that's still got to be a concern for a team that didn't make the 8 last year against a team that was in the grand final. To feel like they weren't the better team was, it's hard to see. Even when Latrell comes back, I think it's going to take a little bit of time to still get used to all the pieces that are around there. I think they'll take a small step backwards this year.
Can we? Yeah, and I think this is crazy to think. Like, I've just been again reading their losses, and I go, man, if they keep Adam Reynolds, let's just say he was still there, we would be discussing with them being a top 4 team still. Like, that he's moving to massive change. I reckon he's moved the chain for South Sydney to go backwards, and he's moved the chain for the Brisbane Broncos to go forward. That's a crazy. I still don't understand why they let him go, but hey, they've obviously got their ideas. But let's move on to their arch rivals, the arch nemesis in the Sydney Roosters, who made a couple of good signings. I would say without losing much, but they have lost a few. So we've got gains: Connor Watson, Reno Fatoni, Paul Momorowski, and Kevin Nagama. He's back from St Helens, winning a championship with them. That's a good pickup. Losses: they only lost 2 players to actually other clubs, which was Isaac Liu to Gold Coast and Mick Ikavalu to Cronulla. Jake Friend, Boyd Cordner, Brett Morris, Josh Morris, and Dale Copley all retired at the end of last season. So, some big losses there. But maybe the biggest gain of all for the Sydney Roosters, and is it a gain if he can stay healthy on the field, is Luke Keary. I think if he stays healthy, this team finishes first on the ladder, as you'll see in my predictions coming up. Horror. But I think that they are, with him on the field, they are the best team in the comp?
I am not as sold on the Roosters as you are. I think Tedesco's trainers love Teddy. I feel like their halves are a vulnerability in defence because they are so slight.
Yep.
Love Joey Manu. Think he's a great player. I think Momorowski's a really good pickup for them as well. I think Tupou is consistently underrated, and I think he should be. I think he's just unfortunate that he's playing in an era of the Blues where we've got so many tremendous Blues players. Otherwise, he would be consistently in the team. I really like the Connor Watson pickup for 9. I like that he's finally getting that opportunity to be there, and I think it's a really good transition from Jake Friend to Watson. Their forwards worry me a little bit. I think the depth is being eroded there, as which happens with the good teams. Your bench players get starting roles elsewhere, and your starting players get older. So Radley's had a couple of bad injuries. How is he going to hang in there? Rhea Hargreaves is getting older, so I think this team will still do well. I think Trent Robinson's a really good coach. I think they got really good players that they'll still be there. They'll still be contenders. Yeah, I don't think they're the best team this year.
So we'll agree to disagree there because I obviously think they're the best team. But I believe in Luke Keary. I think honestly he's going to make such a difference this year for them. But that is the Roosters. Let's move on to it's our year, the Warriors. So the Warriors have had a massive gain in the return of the son. Sean Johnson is back.
Yeah. He
is back in a Warriors jersey, along with a good pickup of Aaron Pene from Melbourne. They got Jesse Arters on loan from Brisbane just for 2022 to have some depth in the centres. And Ash Taylor was on a train and trial deal and moved up to a full contract as a good little backup for the halves pairing they have. Losses, a few decent ones in there. The big one, obviously, being the man, the myth, the metal legend, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, gone to Rugby Union. Paul Turner to Gold Coast, Sean O'Sullivan to Penrith, Peter Hiku, Chad Townsend and Jermaine Tanua-Brown all up to the Cowboys, jumped onto Todd Payton's bandwagon. A big loss, I think, didn't play a lot of footy last year just due to coming home and COVID and everything, was David Fusitua, has signed with Leeds. Kane Evans, Fold Some C, is off to Hull FC, and then we had a couple unsigned, and Leeson Amal has retired. So the Warriors, it's our year. Is it their year though, Hughesy? Is it?
I think they get close to the year. I don't know if I quite see them getting over the hump. I think Reece Walsh, when he's not making bad off-the-field decisions, he's making good on-field decisions. But there's already talk of him not necessarily being happy in the Warriors jersey, and maybe wanting to go back to Queensland. So that has me a little bit worried. I think that Sean Johnson, though, he's older, he's wiser, he's maybe not as fast as he once was, but he's still a fast player. I think he brings some experience from the Sharks that is necessary for this Warriors team. I think the forwards are decent. I don't see them making the. I think they challenge teams, but I don't think it is their year.
I'm interested. This Warriors team has me interested, and that's a worrying sign. When a Warriors team normally has you interested, they normally let you down. Like last year, I wasn't that interested in the Warriors team. I just thought they're not good enough, and they actually hung around more than they deserve to. But this year, I'm like, man, I'm interested. There's rumours of Tohu Harris already returning after round 3, and then that would push probably Josh Carrion back to an edge where he was a come out of nowhere type player and was formidable for them. Rocco Berry's looked fantastic, a Union boy who's made the transition to the league and made it look easy. Yeah. So I think getting rid of Kane Evans was probably a good idea. Matt Lodge still on the books. I'm still unsure of. I think he's one of those guys. The Warriors aren't one of those aggressive clubs, if you know what I mean. They'll be aggressive. They have to, but they don't ooze aggression. They're like, we're big motherfuckers and we'll run over the top of you. We're not going to try and start pushing shoves and be hard tacklers. Yeah. We're going to just try and dominate you on the field. Matt Lodge is kind of the opposite of that, where he'll try and do whatever he can to get under your skin. So I don't know. I think that'll be
into your house.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting one. I think Sean Johnson's a great pickup for them. I think he's going to have a stellar year. I mean, he was a golden boot once upon a time, so he's got all the talent there. I think, like you said, matured. I think him along with Reece Rolch are going to tear some teams open. And I think he'll be back to his best. Like Sean Johnson wasn't that great for the Sharks, and I don't mean as a player, just injuries, in and out of form. Some games he was Sean Johnson, some games he was just your average half. So I think this year we're going to actually see some consistency from him that we haven't seen for a long time. So I'm excited to see this Warriors team, which probably means they'll finish 16th. So yeah, because that's what the Warriors do. Last but not least, the mighty West.
Well,
maybe less, maybe, and maybe last. The West Tigers. Games for them: Jackson Hastings and Oliver Gildart from Wigan in the UK, Tyrone Peachey from Gold Coast, and Stanford Toa from Newcastle. Losses: Moses Mbai to you fellas, Billy Walters to Brisbane, Michael Cheetham to South Sydney, Joey Leilua, Featherstone UK, didn't even know it was second division. Did you hear about that? Reece Hoffman to Canterbury, a few players released, and Russell Packer retired. This team, I can't get a read on this team. And I know Madge, and I see why people have them as potentially coming last. I can see that. But I go, man, there's also some talented players in there that could do stuff. Like they could. I'm not. I think Jackson Hastings coming back is great. I know the UK players don't usually work, so I'll be interested to see how Oliver Gildart goes if he's one of the few that can make it work. Tyrone Peachey, I think, is a good pickup. They need something like that just as a spark. But yeah, I'm a question mark. I put a question mark next to their name, whereas Hughesy's probably going to put a cross through their name.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think they've got a low ceiling and a very low floor. I do not believe in this Tigers team, really. I think there's too many question marks, and too many question marks turns into a cross usually.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't believe in this team being able to be consistent. And that's the biggest thing in a competition that lasts 25 rounds, finals, Origin, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't believe in this team. James Roberts, is he even going to stay on the field? You know, like Luke Brooks, is he going to be able to handle all the pressure on him and the pressure to kick him to the curb? You know, which version of the forward pack are we going to see? You know, it's too much for me. It's too much for me to be like, yep, this team's gonna make teams really think. I don't think so. They had so many opportunities last year where all of the reasons to play were in front of them, all of the motivation where teams usually step up and play that extra little bit harder, and they just didn't.
Yeah.
And I think Michael Maguire is a big part of that. And I know he's consistently undermined by the Tigers board at times. Well, that doesn't make sense. He's consistently undermined by the Tigers board. Not at times. He's consistently undermined. Right? Even this year, they're just like, give him a year, see how he goes. But clearly, the pressure's on. He's not going to be given a full year. If stuff starts to go wrong, he's going to be out of it. He does not have a year. Yeah. He has like 3 or 4 losses in a row, and then he's gone. I think this Tigers team doesn't have belief in themselves. I don't think they have belief in their coach. I think they don't have belief in their board. I don't think their fans have any belief in them. And that is... Some teams, I think, can really take that and create an inner bond amongst all of themselves and be like, no one believes in us, we're the underdogs, fuck it, we'll just play our hearts out and we'll shock the world. I don't see this team being capable of that. I can't look at this roster and see a player who I think can step up and make the team believe that and play like that.
Yeah, I think your best chance is Adam Dewey, and he's not there at the start. So until he does come back, I think I can see that argument, and I can see there's a lot more. Again, it's like you said, a lot of question marks lead to a cross, and I think that's where I'm heading to as well. They'll eventually fizzle out and not be a top 8 team. So that is all the teams done and dusted. Key gains, losses, what we think of them.
Yeah.
Let's jump into the table, and I'll start with mine. I've got my order ready. So, at 1, I've got the Roosters. As I said, I think they're going to win it. Second, Storm. Third, I've got Raiders. I think the Raiders bounce back this year, as I said. Fourth, I've got Panthers. I still think Panthers are a top 4 team. I just think they have a little problem with depth, players around Origin, stuff like that. Manly 5, Titans 6, Parramatta 7, and those 3 teams, I think you could change that order, and I wouldn't mind at all. I think even Parramatta could go higher, and Raiders could drop it again. How those Raiders get on. I'm still high on the Raiders, but I was so high on them with Fogarty. I think my heart's still a little bit with them rather than actually them being a third best team. At 8th, I've got Souths, and I struggled to put Souths any lower or higher than 8th. It's really hard because I think they're going to take a drop, but I couldn't put them out of the 8th. Then the next 3 teams, I've got the Warriors at 9th, Sharks 10th, Broncos 11th. I think you could put those 3 teams in any order in that position. I actually think the Sharks are, if I was to move one team up this board and probably go, I got that wrong, when I look back at this, it'll be the Sharks. Then I go Tigers 12th, Dragons 13th, Knights 14th, Cowboys 15th, and Bulldogs 16th. And I do not like any of those picks. All those 5 could all finish anywhere in that group, but they all could prove me very wrong. I can see it happening. One of those teams there, I can guarantee it, the Tigers, the Dragons, Knights, the Cowboys, and Bulldogs, one of those teams won't finish in the bottom 5, and they'll prove me wrong. You're hoping it's the Dragons. It could be any of those teams, in my opinion. But that's my 16.
God, the biggest one for me there, and not just because of, because I'm a Dragons fan. There's Dragons at 13, finishing even worse than they did last year, is really tough for me to swallow. But let's look at my list. I think the Melbourne Storm is going to be the number 1 team. Hard to pick against them. I think they're built for this. Panthers at 2. I think they're still going to be up there. I've got Manly at 3, Roosters at 4, Para at 5, Dragons at 6, Titans at 7, Souths at 8. Then I've got the Sharks at 9, and again, I think I'm similar to you. The Sharks could easily go up for me. I think Sharks could be the 8th team, and Souths drop out of their 8. I think for me, that seems like the most likely thing to happen. Then I've got the Raiders, just because I've got that feeling about them. Then I've got the Warriors, Broncos, Bulldogs, Cowboys. I think Knights are in for a really disappointing year. I think this team is going to collapse and get run over by a few. And then I have Tigers winning the spoon. I have Michael Maguire
out.
I think if he makes it to mid-season, he'll be doing pretty well for himself.
Yeah. Well, there's our both of our full 16. So the only real difference in the top 8, I've got Raiders, you've got Dragons, I think, from what I can see. So interesting, very interesting. I think one of those, and we just back with the same. If we took the Dragons out of my bottom 5, we'd have the Tigers, Bulldogs, Cowboys, Knights. We all think are going to have a struggle season. I think one of those teams probably surprise us. I think it could be any of them. I put the Knights down there, but you've got to think about the factor of Kalen Ponga is Kalen Ponga and could do Kalen Ponga type things. For Daly M, I've had a bit of a think, and you can think as I'm speaking, because I think the reason I say one of those bottom 5 teams could jump out and jump up, because I think the Knights could, and because I think if anyone's going to do it from the bottom 8 teams and be a Daly M, it's going to be Kalen Ponga. I think he could jump out and be the best player this year. Unfortunately, when your team finishes 13th, 14th, probably can't be getting the best player. I've got the Roosters winning. I don't necessarily think that means that the Roosters will have the best player. I think that the Daly M is going to be a bit of a shock this year. A little one. I've got, with my Raiders feeling, I'm keeping this Raiders flow going. I've gone Jack Whiten. And I think Jack Whiten is going to, now that Fogarty's out, you've got this Brad Schneider, young buck in there. I think you go, Jack Whiten, this is your team. Here's the keys to the back line. You've got enough weapons outside you. You've got enough weapons inside you. have a go. They finished third. Jack Whiten has a big year. He's my Daly M.
Okay. Interesting. Very interesting.
You'd think I'm a Raiders fan for how big up I'm talking the Raiders.
You'd think so. Yeah, Daly M, I think it's really tough this year. I think there's a lot of players set up for success, and it's very early in the season to see who's going to be taking it out. God, this is tough. This is really tough. This is probably the hardest thing to think. I'm going to pick, and it's probably a bit of a cop-out pick, but I think it's going to be Nathan Cleary. He's going to miss 3 weeks, but I think he's been denied too many times. I think this year is his year to really take control and to be the Daly M medalist. And he could have won it in a previous year. I think he was even looking at it last year until Tommy Turbo
went nuts.
came back. And so I think the fact that Turbo was able to miss the amount of time that he missed, come back in and do that and win the Daly M, I think Cleary can do the same thing, and I think he's gonna take it. I think he deserves it as well. Like, I think it'll be his year.
Nice. So just lastly, we'll touch on our picks for round 1 now that it's right around the corner. First game of the year, Manly versus Panthers. We've both gone Manly. We don't have to discuss. No Cleary is the reason why. We said it before the video that you'd look like you're a bit of an idiot if you pick Penrith and Manly beat you, but if you pick Manly and Penrith win, you look less like an idiot, so that's why we've both picked Manly.
Well, that's why you've picked Manly.
Well, that's why I picked Manly. I don't want to look like an idiot. So, second one, Raiders and Sharks. I've gone Raiders. Hughesy's gone Sharks. The reason why I've gone Raiders is probably because of this whole video, if you've listened to it all. If you want to listen to the Raiders part, because I'll break it down into chapters, listen to the Raiders part and I talk about my Raiders, and then listen to me talk about my Daly M pick, and then and then you'll now know why I picked the Raiders. Sharks, again, could go either way that game. The way they played in that last trial, we've talked about the Sharks enough as well, about how they could be that team.
So I picked the Sharks for that one.
Yes.
Luke's picked the Raiders. I think the Sharks backline dissects the Raiders.
Oh, interesting. And then Souths versus Broncos, we've both gone with Souths. Though Adam Reynolds really hits the Broncos, I think. But I think it'll be a good game. I'm really interested to see this game because there is no Latrell either. So I think kind of like the 2 best players from each team not playing. Broncos still in with a shout, but I've gone South, so has Hughesy. Roosters and Knights. We've both gone Roosters. Need I say more? Warriors and Dragons. I've gone Warriors. Hughesy's gone as Dragons. Hughesy, why are the Dragons going to win?
They're a better team than the Warriors. They're a better team across the board than the Warriors, especially with no Reece Walsh. It's like, if you had Reece Walsh in there, I'd give you more of a chance. But other than that, I think you look through the 2 rosters, and I think at every single position, the Dragons are better than their Warriors counterparts.
Ed and Fanua Blake would have something to disagree with there.
Him and Blake Laurie going head to head. I picked Blake Laurie.
Okay, you are on some psychedelic drugs right about now.
He's a big guy. He's a big motherfucker.
Again, I'm a Titan supporter first, Warriors second. Yeah. I hope Warriors win, just so I can clip this and share it on our page for like every minute for 2 minutes, 10 minutes straight. I'm just going to share the same exact video of it. And I hope Adam Fanua Blake runs straight over the top of Blake Laurie, and I'll clip that as well. Alrighty. So Storm versus Tigers. Next game, we've both gone Storm.
Easiest pick of the round, I think.
Well, yeah, I'll clip that if the Tigers somehow pull out. Second to last game, Parramatta versus my Titans. I've obviously gone with my Titans. Hughesy's gone with Parramatta. It's an understandable pick. Both teams. It's going to be one of the games of the round, I think.
I think it'll be a good game.
Hell of a game.
I think it'll be a really good game.
Yep. And then last game, probably shittest game of the round, Cowboys versus Bulldogs, which I say shittest game of the round, but it could be actually highly entertaining because 2 very newish teams coming together. There'll be a lot going on.
They've both got the same odds.
Yeah, so
but they're both the same odds. So
bang on. So I've gone Cowboys. Hughesy's gone Bulldogs. I mean, I can't really say why I've gone Cowboys. I've just gone Cowboys, and I haven't gone Bulldogs. That's the only reason. There's not a lot of thought into this one. Same odds here, flipping a coin. I went with the Cowboys.
Look, it's actually quite interesting. So other than the Eels versus Titans, every other game that we've differed on has got just about even odds. So the Dragons and Warriors are both even odds. Cowboys and Bulldogs are both even odds. Between the Raiders and the Sharks are favoured by 10 cents.
Yeah.
It's $1.95 to $1.85. The only one that there's a big discrepancy on, and I think this is to do with you, is the Eels and the Titans. The Eels are big favourites in that $1.45 to $2.75 for the Titans.
Well,
So
I'll be happy when we prove it wrong.
I think that's a bit harsh. I think it's a bit harsh on the Titans.
That's good odds.
Personally.
That's good odds. I'll take those odds.
But other than that, you can see like the picks that we've differed on. Everyone else is sort of thinking these are the very close ones that kind of could go either way.
100%.
So I think that's a good indication for us. It's a good sign for us.
And I think it's a good sign for this season as well. Like, you know, you're already in this, you know, again, Cowboys versus the Bulldogs, and I guess what the Tigers would probably be at the lowest odds, I'd imagine.
I think so.
Or maybe the Knights, one of those two games. But even that, I think this Tigers team's going to put up more of a fight. So I'm hopeful for this season we don't see as big of, I guess spread.
Oh, the Knights are actually the worst odds
Are they?
of the first round.
Yeah, that doesn't really surprise
for Tigers and Storm, it's Storm $1.25, Tigers $4, and Roosters Knights is $1.20 to $4.50.
Yeah, the Knights are
There you go.
Yep. Interesting. Alrighty, I think that's the NRL covered. I think. Do we didn't do grand final winners, but we'll probably put those predictions once the finals time comes out, because we've done our top 8 and we'll probably be very wrong. Someone will be. So for now, thank you for joining us. Best of luck to Adam Fanua Blake and running over Blake Laurie, and we will talk to you next week. See you later.
Peace.
Bye.